Did Deadpool cause the writers and actors strike? I know it sounds crazy, but there are a lot of statistics that back this claim up. Just hear me out. May 2nd, the writers go on strike. July 14th, the actors go on strike. And between those two dates, something was released. This photo of Deadpool and Wolverine. At first glance, there probably doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with this photo, but there's actually something that's pretty glaring. Wolverine has sleeves. Now, if you're an X-head like me, you know Wolverine is known for not having sleeves on his costume. Here are a few examples. As you can tell, none of them have sleeves. And also, while we're on the topic of X-Men, here's a cool photo of Channing Tatum playing Gambit. Honestly, folks, we were robbed of this movie, especially because they took these photos of Channing Tatum, but didn't even take any video. It's super annoying. You're making a movie and you didn't even do the video part? That's like doing music without the instrument part. I get that you can do a lot of music in GarageBand now, but I still really like the instrument part of music, and I'm willing to fight for it. So I think there's a few different ways Wolverine could lose his sleeves in this scene. First of all, this is probably a fight scene, so getting them cut off makes a lot of sense. Either because he's hot and needs to cool down, or maybe they're just getting a little raggedy from the fight and it just doesn't make sense for him to keep them on anymore. Or he could lose both arms in their entirety and with it goes the sleeves. And I could see them getting chopped off from Deadpool's katanas or even his own claws. This would be a great visual gag, and it would also give us some blood, which is always welcome in the Deadpool movies. But the problem is we don't really know how fast Wolverine's healing factor works when he loses a limb. We've seen simple healing stuff in the other X-Men flicks, but an entire arm is a lot to heal. And we don't want to have to deal with an armless Wolverine the entire movie. So I'm personally leaning towards him just tearing them off during the fight because it's probably going to be very intense and he needs to cool off. But if you have a different idea of how he could lose his sleeves, leave it in the comments and be very, very descriptive. And add any sort of one-liner you think Deadpool could say. So why am I focusing so much on these sleeves? Well, it's because they're bait. Between the time of the writer's strike and this photo being released, the biggest story on the internet was the fact that when Deadpool 3 began filming, Deadpool would not be allowed to improvise during the movie. And myself and many of the Deadpool heads had the same thought. Good luck with that. You are not stopping the merc with the mouth from riffing and improvising. That is an impossible task. So who's to blame for the sleeves? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Disney. And more specifically, the head of Disney, Bob Iger. I guarantee you that Bob Iger added the sleeves to Wolverine's costume the day before shooting was supposed to happen so Deadpool would slip up and improvise. And you can't blame Deadpool for this slip up. If you present him with something that is just blatantly inaccurate, he can't help himself and has to riff on it. You might be asking yourself, how do I know that Deadpool slipped up and mentioned the sleeves? Because 3 days after this photo was released, the actors went on strike, and in many circles, Deadpool became the fall guy when it genuinely wasn't even his fault. And from Disney's perspective, they couldn't have picked a better person to place blame. Deadpool was new to the MCU, so he wasn't established yet. He says curse words every once in a while, which looks really bad on a resume. And he has no use for Disney in the future because he wears a mask and they couldn't scan his face. Disney is now in the face scanning business. That's all they want to do, and you cannot scan Deadpool's face. He wears a mask. It was the perfect plan and it flew over all of our heads. Or did it? Look at the dates again. There are 70 days between the writer's strike and the photo of Deadpool and Wolverine. How many years has it been since the first Deadpool movie came out? 7. Then it was only 3 days between the photo releasing and the actor's strike. What Deadpool movie were they shooting? The third one. Then if you put those two numbers together, you get 73, which could refer to 73 Pizza, which is a Canadian pizza chain. And as many of you know, Deadpool is also Canadian. Or it could be a number letter code and actually mean GC, which could stand for group chat, which is where the Hollywood elite discussed and screwed over Deadpool. And I would assume that their group chat was probably in WhatsApp or iMessage. It really just depends on who in the Hollywood elite owns an iPhone. If they all own an iPhone, they're probably going to be using iMessage, but if there's a few of them that have an Android, they probably will be using the WhatsApp. But if some of them maybe have an iPad or maybe a MacBook or even an iPod Touch, then they could use iMessage, but they would have to use their email for that and also be connected to Wi-Fi. So either WhatsApp or iMessage are probably the two most logical group chat apps that they used. At the end of the day, this is a very frustrating situation that needs to be fixed. First thing that needs to happen is we need to stop blaming Deadpool. He was framed. And second, these writers and actors need to be paid fairly. Mr. Bob Iger, you thought you could outsmart the merc with the mouth, and you were wrong. It's time to open up that wallet and pay these talented individuals what they deserve.